Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Ukrainian show on Bot TV. My name is Sasha Star, and our guests today are Dr. Jonathan Lockwood. Welcome to the show, Jonathan. Great to
Thank you, Sasha. Good to be here.
And Ivan Kucherenko from Kyiv, Ukraine. Welcome to the show, Ivan.
Hello, Sasha. Hi, Jonathan. Hello, everyone.
Great to see you, Ivan. So why don't we start with a video that you have for us?
Yeah, sure. Let's start with it.
Okay.
While destabilizing Ukraine's Donetsk and Luhansk regions, Russia did not build any parks, schools, kindergartens, or initiate the opening of any new businesses there. And what was built by Ukraine by then was brazenly stolen and destroyed. Instead of developing these regions, the only thing that Russia has brought here is hundreds of billboards with bold and manipulative Russian propaganda lines. Russia is here forever. We're returning home. Together against Nazism. Crime spread in the city streets. Low-quality Russian products filled the stores. Homes were left without water, electricity, gas, heating. And Russian propaganda was the only thing appearing on TV and newspapers, with no alternative. Residents of the so-called DPR and LPR were not issued new passports. On the contrary, they were deprived of their rights, and their passports were not recognized even by Russia itself.
По этому паспорту можно ездить в... Куда можно по нему ездить?
Луганскую Народную Республику, в Россию и в Южную Осетию.
Moreover, for a long time, even Russia did not recognize these artificial DPR and LPR republics that Russia itself had created. Russia and Putin needed these regions only to destabilize the situation in Ukraine and to cause further escalation. And the local population is like cannon fodder for the full-scale war.
Всех мужиков, всех ребят, уже половина попохоронили мы. Отдайте документы парню.
Nowadays, experts note that what Russia is doing here is more like a planned genocide of the Donbass than its salvation.
За всі ці 8 років немає більш постраждалої, насправді, нещасної території, нещасних людей, ніж оці самі мешканці Донбасу, ніж сам Донбас, який Росія нібито почала в 2014 році захищати. Результат цього захисту – це, фактично руйнування цього регіону.
Over 8 years of the war, 2 million residents have left these regions, but they grieve Donetsk and Luhansk to this day. And despite the critically dire situation in these regions, all Ukrainians know that Donetsk and Luhansk are Ukraine, and soon they will come home.
Excellent video, Ivan. I was actually in Donetsk in 2012, not 13, 12, yeah. And was very peaceful, actually, I felt very safe there. The people were very nice, and if somebody would tell me what was going to happen in 2 years' time or in 12 years' time, I would never believe that. There was no ground, in my opinion, for that. How could escalate? What I've heard actually is that Russians sent a lot of fighters from the Transnistria area. They were like real bandits, trained, and they sent them, a lot of them, to Donetsk, Lugansk region in 2014 after Crimea to do this Is it your information as well, Ivan?
Yeah, Lugansk. Just remember you that I'm originally from Lugansk, and Lugansk was quite a peaceful city, small, with a lot of universities and a lot of people from India, from Southern Africa, studied in Lugansk Medical University. It was very popular amongst them and provided quite a good education for affordable money. And I moved from Lugansk to Kiev in 2006, but I came there quite oftenly because all my relatives were there. My mom, the last time I was here was 2013, and that happened in 2014. Actually, was completely artificial. Those people, Russia, because the border, we never considered Russia to be a potential aggressor to Ukraine, and the border of Lugansk region, the Lugansk-Donetsk region, and Russian regions was quite open. People moved from Russia to Lugansk and vice versa without any visas, using just your internal passport. No foreign passport was needed, and Russia used that to bring a lot of so-called titushkas, a lot of bandits, thugs to Lugansk to create that picture that the majority of Lugansk population was against Ukraine and they wanted to be with Russia. And beside that, they've used some saboteur groups. For instance, one of them was headed by Girkin, who captured the Slovyansk city in Donetsk region, and these armed saboteur groups were actually of Russian former or active special services members, and they've used force to capture the police districts, to capture government districts. And actually what was shown in that video is true. There is no law in Lugansk. The city is completely empty. I've got some information from here. Only mostly armed men are on the streets. Several years ago, my mother-in-law was killed in Lugansk with her family. She was a director. She was an owner of a jewelry shop, and one night some people entered her house and killed her husband, her daughter, and her grandson. 4 people were killed, and no one found those killers. So it's completely some kind of Westworld, no rules. The one who has a gun and who has a Russian flag on their uniform, those is a rule actually there. So it's a very sad picture, but I hope that this will be changed in near future after the successful Ukrainian attack and after the Ukrainian armed forces will recover all occupied territories recaptured.
Ivan, I would like to mention something that could you see that, because it's all happened in 2014 after annexation of Crimea and the ouster of Yanukovych, and Yanukovych actually he is I think from Donbass, from Donetsk city. So how it was possible that those ouster of Yanukovych and invasion of Crimea, and then sending all these thugs to Donetsk and Lugansk, take over these 2 regions, and of course at that time Ukrainian army was ineffective because of the lack of leadership, and it's happened so suddenly. Jonathan, what's your view on this beginning of a real war between Russia and Ukraine?
Well, I would say we have passed the culminating point of Russia's offensive efforts against Ukraine. They don't really have the capacity to finish off Ukraine, not by themselves, and not without an all too risky escalation to nuclear conflict. They can't force a decisive result that way. Now the question becomes, does Ukraine have the requisite counterattack capability and the timing? Ukraine does not have the luxury of simply going on the offensive at any old time and in any old place without regard to casualties or without regard to results. They need to time their punch. They need to make their shot count. Like a good boxer, as I said before, like a good boxer looking for the right moment to open up with his counterattack and put the Russians on the floor. And these opening attacks, what I would call reconnaissance in force. They are probing. They are looking. They are looking for the right opening. And the people, observers in the West and on both sides can talk about it all they want. But it is the Ukrainian armed forces, the Ukrainian military and political leadership themselves that have to keep their own counsel. They have to keep their own counsel as to when their exact timing is going to be for their punch. Now, we can make some intelligent guesses. Obviously, we could look at Ukraine and its vulnerable position and its vulnerability to being cut off, how it would seem to logical, rational observers who are not themselves involved in the conflict to say, oh, yes, I mean, that's a logical objective to cut off the Ukraine, cut off the supplies, let the Russian occupiers in Ukraine feel the burden of isolation, being cut off from supplies. It would seem to a logical observer that would be a logical, rational thing for the Ukrainian armed forces to do. It's the timing and the direction and the degree to which Ukraine is willing to commit its forces. The observers in the West say that Ukraine has 98% of the promised shipments. Okay, that's true on its face, but there are also certain other things which Ukraine has been asking for, which could give them, arguably, a decisive edge in a counteroffensive or in any local counteroffensive. These are things we can speculate about, but we cannot be absolutely, because the Ukrainians don't want us to be certain of when the attack is going to occur. They're trying to keep it as much a secret from the Russians as possible to get the maximum effect from their counterattack. And so while we can say and speculate, okay, it really does not matter the timing. What does matter is that when the attack does come, it catches the Russians off balance. It catches them unprepared. And if we do so, then this will be that much more effective. Yes, Ivan.
Yeah, they're already unprepared. I've read an article, I think it was on CNN, and in this article, I'll describe that the recent attacks within the occupied territory, like the destroying of fuel or base of Black Sea Fleet in occupied Sevastopol, which was 2 days ago, or destroying of train with some oil supplies in Belgorod Oblast, which was yesterday, shows that Russia is completely unprepared for Ukrainian counterattack, and Ukraine striking far behind the lines. And this is what you called the reconnaissance in force. This is not a counterattack even actually beginning.
Now, the only difference... go ahead.
Yeah, and I listened for one Ukrainian military expert, Taras Berzovets, and he said quite interesting and funny thing, that Russians can't have any success on the battlefield without three things: without strong artillery support, without railroads, and without vodka. And that Ukrainian armed forces are currently doing. They're cutting off the railroad lines, using the partisans, the guerrilla operations even on the Russian territory, like in Belgrade. They're destroying the Russian artillery in counter artillery battles, and we see that according to the last statistics of Russian casualties from the Ukrainian armed forces, they have significant increase in destroyed artillery systems during this period, and it shows that Ukrainians are actively preparing to the counterattack by destroying the Russian artillery. And unfortunately, we can do nothing with the vodka, but just to supply Russians even more of vodka for them to be drunken completely when the Ukrainian counterattack will begin.
Actually, Ukrainian vodka is of highest quality, and Russians will
Oh,
be very, very grateful for that.
All Ukrainian products are very good quality because Ukrainians put our souls into these products. And it's not only about vodka, about other products as well.
And it's a lot of pride too.
great anesthetic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you something, a very different concepts in the war from Ukrainians and from Russian. For Russians, the most important thing is the land. They sacrifice thousands of their people just to grab extra 10 meters or 100 meters of land. So the land is priority number one. Saving life of their people is no priority whatsoever. It doesn't matter how many people were killed in Bakhmut. To make a little movement, 10 meters or 15 meters, they were sending hundreds a day, if not thousands a day. Now, from Ukrainian point of view, it's no land, it's the people, it's their sons. The most important thing is to save as many soldiers, as many people as they can of their own. So that's why, in my opinion, they are not rushing in this counterattack, simply because they want to, besides, of course, they want to free their territory, but they want to preserve their armies. This is number one, because if you don't have army, you don't have territory, you don't have anything. You have army, then you can fight and eventually get all your territory. So in a way, what Colonel Svitan, I'm listening to him quite often, that's what he said, that the Ukrainian tactics of meat grinder is the superior, because this exactly does what it has to do, to kill as many enemies as possible. This is the goal of war. What do you need army if not to kill your enemies? What is this army for? You don't need armies that cannot kill the enemies. The goal of the army to kill as many enemies as possible. With that, you will have land, you will have everything what you want, if your objective has been achieved. So this is exactly what I see is happening. Is they're very careful probing in different directions. Where is the easiest way to mount a counterattack? I think they have several different plans where to have a major blow.
They will just go with whatever one presents them with the best opportunity. That seems to be the pattern of Ukraine thus far. Look for the best opportunity. Don't just lock yourself in to one particular course of action. They're being very flexible. And they can just ignore all the chatter, all the chatter in the West and in the East and all around the world. Oh, where's it going to come? Is it come? Is it going to work?
It's
they
all
just
noise.
ignore that. It's all noise to them. And if the noise confuses the Russians, great. the Russians have to sort through that noise too.
In that respect, also there was activization of Chinese diplomacy, and they're now willing to send a special envoy to Ukraine to work on this peace solution or so on. From what I understand by now, it's again nothing but noise, which will benefit China as a great peacemaker, the great guerrilla who could put something what no West could do, no East could do, no Russia, no United States, nobody else did but China. China did it. Ivan, tell me, do you think it's a feasible initiative?
I think that China just want to use this situation to get their own benefits from the Ukrainian victory. They're actually getting benefits from Russia being in war because Russia has no trade partners, not so much trade partners left in the world except of China. But in the end, China can get even more benefits with the Ukrainian victory because sanctions will not be lifted off from Russia immediately. Sanctions from Russia will be lifted only after all Ukrainian goals will be achieved. Ukraine will receive reparations from Russia. Ukraine will punish, and the world society definitely will punish all the war criminals, including Putin and his fellows. And during this, China will benefit both with trading with Russia and getting the Russian resources very cheap, and with importing their consumer goods into Russia, because when all major, for instance, all major car manufacturers left Russia in order to stop paying taxes there, and we appreciate those companies who left Russia and not pay taxes there to Putin to support and continue his war. The Chinese car manufacturers increased their market share significantly there, and soon, probably on the streets of Moscow or St. Petersburg or other cities, there will be only Chinese cars, probably, and some Russian so-called cars. But what is interesting that from one side, China is using Russia and getting some benefits, and from other side, China is not supporting this war, and even the recent statement of United Nations, which calls the Russia being an aggressor into Georgia and into Ukraine, and demanding Russia to pay the reparations because of their aggression, was supported by China. China voted for this statement. Only 5 countries voted against it: Russia themselves, Belarus, Iran, Northern Korea, and one of the African countries, I think. And China, which previously was not for and not against, they just passed the voting on some statements condemning Russia. This time, China supported this memorandum, as well as India, as well as Brazil. So Russia has not so much allies in this world, and hopefully with time and with their future atrocities, because they are not stopping conducting war crimes in Ukraine, even more countries will stop supporting Russia.
So obviously, Russian so-called BRICS strategy is backfiring big time. If it went down to South Africa, ask Putin not to come there because they will have to arrest him.
Your bad luck.
Oh my God. Actually, I thought so very interesting economic program about trade between Russia and China. So essentially, to understand what is the trade of China with different countries, the all volume of Russian trade with China is equal one with Malaysia. The Malaysia is a tiny part. You see, what is the Russia and what is the Malaysia, and it's equal in dollars. It's exactly equal trade.
That's pretty sad.
That's very sad. And if you think about China's trade with the European Union and United States, China is a very pragmatic country. They will not exchange this tiny trade with Russia for colossal trade that they cannot afford to lose with the European Union and United States. So now you can easily figure out all their next moves, because as Ivan, you're too young to remember, but I think in Clinton's time when he was fighting for election with Bush Sr., I think it was him who said, it's economy, stupid. So economy is very, very important part of foreign equations, whether it's election in the United States or it's a war, the tragic war in Europe. But the economy plays a very, very big role in that. And all I can say is I'm grateful to you for today's program, and I'm looking forward for Friday program. And I think that by Friday we will find out, because we're getting very close to their big celebration of May 9th, with this military parade and so on. It would be very interesting to see how it's going to happen. Okay.
We'll see if there's much of a celebration.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye, and see you on Friday. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Slava Ukraini.
Героям.